An absolute bucket load of features have just been added to ARK, completely changing creatures, quality of life improvements, new dinos spawning on Ragnarok, and much, much more. So, let's get into it. First up are Phoenix. Phoenix now have a gender assigned to them. You can now mate them. And then once mated, you'll find them dropping a brand new egg. Look at this! A cool new fiery looking Phoenix variant egg, which you can now hatch and have your own imprinted baby Phoenixes. Look at that. Dude, this right here is something very special. I'm keen to get my hands on and go and tame some legit unofficial now to see how good they are. How good they are when imprinted, right? Which I guess, at least for your attention, here's stats with 43 points in melee and 34 points in health with imprints on top. We're getting a nice tidy boost there, and hopefully that's going to mean people are going to use Phoenixes more. If you're wondering, because I am, and if you're wondering, the egg's classed as a superior kibble egg. Surprisingly, I thought it'd go down as a new extraordinary egg, but no, it's being classed as superior kibble, and that's a new kibble option for you. Worth noting, in result of this breeding, there's been a few changes to the Phoenix, the big one being that the fire attack no longer damages mounted players. An absolutely crazy change, which is going to help a lot of people out there when you think about it, is when holding R, you can now toggle auto run, which will allow you to keep running without touching anything else on your controller, keep running for all eternity as long as your stamina remains. I'm kind of interested what happens if our stamina runs out. And on stamina depletion, you'll still continue to move forward, but of course you've run out of all your stamina, so be mindful of that. But really, its biggest purpose is the use of creatures being able to hold R, turn into toggle auto run, and now you can just chill and not have to hold down, sprint and forward the entire time wherever you need to go. A massive win, especially on slow moving creatures just like an RG, right? An absolute big one. In fact, able to give you opportunities to get some cool shots in K mode. And something I'm hoping it works for is rafts, because if it does, that's huge, because these things are super slow, right? Oh, it does. That's perhaps the biggest improvement over everything else with this auto run feature, because of how slow moving rafts are. You no longer need to keep moving in one direction. And again, go in K mode to get some cool shots while still moving forward. I love that. That's a big one. And if you're wondering, if you press any movement key, it does disable the auto run, so that's how to quickly turn it off. And as you can see, the donkey next to me has a new feature too, that when mounting the creature, you can now hold reload and go to your creature and toggle a harvest only setting, a brand new setting to the resource that you want to harvest, which is going to be game changing for all players out there. Of course, us wanting to only harvest metal now, and now let's see, any rock we hit, we get metal from. Oh my god, every rock now yields metal. That's fantastic. And of course, it's not going to be a lot with these sort of nodes. So now metal farming on a dunk, you're getting a heck of a lot more metal off metal nodes. Wow. I'm pretty sure that's more than you usually get, because it's substituting the stone. I could be wrong, but holy crap. Metal farming became a lot easier, and not just on a Dunkleo, because you can apply the same settings to both a Dode, holding R, clicking on Dode, changing harvest settings, and clicking on stone. So now any and every rock that you hit with a Dode, you're going to get stone, and lots of it. Which is massive. But of course, the big one that everyone's going to be happy about is Anki's having the same option too, which with both this and the Dode have a new feature when auto harvesting. So we've selected metal only on our Anki. So let's pump this Anki with melee. Oh, and for reference, you can change that harvest only setting if you just simply interact with the creature whilst looking at it. So we know it's definitely on metal because it's highlighted green. So our Anki is currently at max weight with the metal it's harvested right now. Let's see this in action. And it continues to harvest. Holy crap. That is big. That is big. So providing your creature carrying your Anki has the weight, you can slack cap an Anki. Holy crap. Solo metal farming just became a heck of a lot easier. Not forgetting, with a high weight Anki, you can now harvest as much metal as you're ever gonna need. Dual-wielded Ankies. But actually, in testing here, it doesn't seem like the Ankies actually want to work. I wonder whether there's an issue with the crab. Meaning you can go way overweight, all the way to slot cap on metal, providing your RG has the weight. That's incredible. Look at that. No longer do you need to ever level weight on an Anki anymore. There's now a new durability setting if toggling on the extended HUD, so clicking that on, it'll tell you how much HP of all of your armor pieces and how much is remaining. So a good example I can think of when exploring the red aberration zone, you now know if your armor's about to break and know if you need to get out quickly. So a really cool new feature, whilst in building mode and you're placing a structure, let's say we're placing a foundation, if you click on any other structure piece, as long as you've got it in your inventory, you'll change to that structure, which is insane. Look at that, allowing you to build just that little bit quicker once you've got used to it. So now you can really do Fortnite towers super duper quick. So as long as you've got those original pieces down, once you've got your foundation, wall and ceiling up, you can go quickly, boom, select that. Oh, there you go. You're building so much more quicker now as a result. That's pretty cool. Again, using the quick ping, so just clicking your ping button, whatever it is on console. Now the creature changes. There's been a few creature changes indeed. The biggest one that I've been waiting for, looking forward to, because it's so underused now, is the Quetzal, having had approximate 15% speed buff improvements. So we'll do a little side-by-side comparison between this shot after buff and this shot before buff. And I can see a noticeable improvement. It's not a lot. Is it enough? Hopefully it is. I mean, we wasn't expecting speedy Quetzals, but they do feel just a little bit quicker now. Some surprising new additions to older creatures is... So mammoths have had a bit of a health scaling improvement by approximately 20%. So pre-buff, it was 850.1. After the patch, it's now 1k. Or to be precise, 1020 at level 1, scaling with each level. Spinos have gone from a base 700 health to 805 health, with its health scaling by approximately 15%. And Brontos, I'm looking forward to this one. That's had a bit of a buff. Oh, not quite a lot, though. It's gone from 1,863 base on a level 1 to 2,049. An approximate 10% increase. Will it be enough for PvPers to use them for other things? We'll see. But at the very least, it's going to make Spinos much more desirable for boss fights. And Mammoths, I always thought were a bit of a boss anyway for boss fights. So I'm kind of interested to see these even more now. And maybe we'll do a how powerful are they now video again. Why not? But there's lots more to go through. We've barely started. For Solars, I've had a damage scaling increase by 20%, which is great to see. I always felt like for Solars were just a little bit too weak, so that extra 20% could definitely turn them into a bit of a chief now. And I am wondering, does that damage increase scale with the ability to farm flint now with more damage? That surely means more flint to harvest, right? But it's very difficult to determine, as I didn't know this was going to get a buff. Maybe it is more flint. Maybe in the comments below you'll know. Dreadmare's damage has been scaled by around 30%, which is surprising. But then again, I didn't feel like I was using these too much in the air anyway. Is that going to make these more attainable to fight against creatures now? 30% is quite a big leap from what it was before. Basilisks have had a bit of a nerf, a reduction in damage by 20% now, so your spits aren't going to be as potent as they used to be, and there's even more stuff about poison damage we're going to tuck into in just a minute. Bronionafa saddles have had a new cap if on PvP enabled servers, looking at a max of 74.5 now on official servers, which is a big one because I know these get used a lot on official PvP. And I'm interested to see how PvPers feel about this one being quite a big meta for the entire duration they've been in the game. Tribe Towers now offer double the buffs that they used to on PvP enabled servers. So that now means that the experience buff has a max bonus cap of 40% after 20 days. The taming speed buff has a maximum cap of an additional 40% after 20 days. And the elements yield buff from bosses is now 60% after 150 days. Holy crap, that's huge. And it will reflect on your unofficial servers. So I think ours was on 25% and has been doubled to 50%, which is insane. Look at that. But speaking of structures, you can't have buffs without a few nerfs, right? And well, there's a big one. If you go to the Bobs pack and scroll through all of the stuff that you get from the Bobs pack, there's one item that's now missing, which is the poker table. It's now no longer an item you can craft anymore in ARK, and apparently that was owed to complying with ESRB rating requirements. Can't be naughty gambling in ARK anymore. I wonder what happened there. A pretty surprising one is that Megalania, Ravagers, and Rock Drakes you can no longer, on PvP servers anyway, equip weapons whilst mounted. So you'll notice my shotgun's greyed out on the Megalania and on the Ravager, and really surprising is the Rock Drake, seeing that this was quite a go-to meta for doing rock well. PvP servers no longer a thing. You've got to play on PvE if you want to be able to shoot from a Rock Drake. Tesla's Bright mode has been completely reworked to apply a 99% slow instead of a stun now, and eliminating dismounts and flyers from being grounded anymore, which is a bit of a shame. I know a lot of PvPers were using this as a way to ground flyers. But I guess now it does act as a much harder to destroy X-Plant that maybe slows you more than X-Plants. Yeeling's poison enhanced feather attack now allows you to eat Titanoboa venom, which is pretty surprising. So upon force feeding it Titanoboa venom, you've now got the ability to use the poison feather attack, with feathers now lasting for 10 minutes on creatures instead of 5 minutes, which is pretty big, with their tame damage scaling increasing by approximately 15% on top too. A pretty big one is that poison wyverns, their spit damage is no longer as good as it used to be. Its damage scaling has been reduced by approximately 40%, which is insane. But in tests here prior to and after, I swear I'm losing more health than I was before this patch. Perhaps this is simply looking at the initial projectile damage, and the poison effect still remains the same. The Dreadnoughtus has had a bit of a nerf as well. It's still its base health being exactly the same as it was before, but leveling, you're getting a lot less health per point, approximately 40%. With its massive Titan Slayer buff now no longer working if you've got one more Dreadnoughtus nearby. So if we get rid of this one here, and now we ride it, we'll see that 50% damage and 50% resistance within range of an enemy large creature like this one here, which is in a different tribe, which is really going to switch up Dreadnoughtus' use, especially in OSD farming that people have been doing for quite a while. You can now only use one Dread effectively. That's interesting. A big one now is the Wyvern milk buff that you can feed onto creatures that you may know about or not know about. Now it lasts for 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes, not only insulating warmth to your creature, but you as well, giving you a giant amount of insulation buff for 3 minutes, which now prevents you from being bled out for 3 minutes from any bleeding creature such as a Thyla. Though worth noting, there is now a 5-minute cooldown on being able to refeed Wyvern milk, which does apply to both you and creatures, so some pros and wins there. You can now knock out enemy players or creatures that have got saddles or armor more effectively with wooden clubs and Equus, but this does really only apply to PvP. You're not going to see any bonus with this on PvE because, well, what, you're going to fight that's got saddles in PvE, right? But still a big win, and maybe some new metas created by having super duper knockout Equises in PvP. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Lightning Wyverns no longer damage your armor with their lightning attacks. You won't see the durability lost on your armor anymore, which is a big one. You can see here we're getting hit by this Lightning Wyvern in the Wyvern Cove, and we're seeing no durability lost on our armor, which is brilliant, making Wyverns just a bit more resistant to, as well as the poison damage reflection. Tinkering desks are back in action when it comes to mechs, a thing that they nerfed quite a while ago because it was being somewhat exploited. You can now use mech BPs to hopefully make better mech BPs, though there's still a chance of it not working and you losing out and getting something crap. Or nothing at all. What the hell? And apparently you can only use mech BPs to make mech BPs, and apparently this is the same for all creature blueprints. The mech's beam attack has had a reduction by approximately 20%, which I'm pretty surprised by. I always thought it was kind of weak in the first place, but apparently not. There must have been a meta to this that I didn't know about. And outdoor structures no longer exert enemy foundation control. Don't know what people were doing there to try and avoid people building within foundation radius, but doors no longer support this. You're now only able to put down 20 dummies in one area at a time, rather than the original 150 that was allowed. I'm guessing some people were using these to perhaps block turrets. And evidently so, when you try and place one on a platform saddle, you're no longer allowed to do that too. The telekinesis skill has been given a buff. So for example, you can now use this to access an Anki that's got its metal from far away and use that to quickly transfer to your forge, which is a big bonus if your Anki just can't get close enough to your forges, right? Tech bunkers are now stack size to 1 instead of 5. Don't know why they were always 5. Can't imagine why anyone would want 5 tech bunkers, but there you go. Now you can only have 1 stack at a time. And now heat waves are going to be more common on Scorched Earth, obviously, as a result of people definitely wanting to tame more phoenixes than they ever could before. The template tools had a bit of a change where when creating a template, slapping down your template, and for whatever reason it's bugged out, you don't want to build it anymore, you can now go up to the blueprint and hold interact, and now you can demolish the blueprint, which is massive. A big welcomed addition there to get rid of those crazy blue blueprints that everyone was suffering with for quite a while. If your Valwyn friends harvest a creature instead of your main Valwyn, prior to this patch the resources would disappear, but now they will transfer straight onto your main Valwyn, which is a great addition. And the Tundra Power effect now scales with weapons. So now you can execute way more damage with weapons. That's a big one to see. And curious what we're going to see in certain fights, buffing your ranged weapons by 25%. Dragon chests from Drakelings have had a bit of a buff and a nerf at the same time, that you're now less likely to get tech items out of any of these. But tech saddles have now been added to Dragon Horde chests, which is insane. Though, admittedly, we struggle to find one in testing here. So the rarity might be pretty slim. But speaking of these chests, you now no longer get XP when killing your own creatures, your own baby creatures, which is obviously what a lot of people are doing, farming their own baby creatures, meaning we're all struggling across the board now. And really, the best way now to get that max 30,000 XP is kill alphas. Archelons are now spawning properly on Ragnarok. Apparently they weren't spawning at all, although we did a creature guide including these. And you can now find them in the locations we listed. For your reference, here's a few that we found right over by the swamp region. And good to see, because people kicked up a big stink about this one, seeing that it was the original Ragnarok exclusive. Gigantoraptors are now officially spawning and found pretty much everywhere all over the map. Not hard to find, and you know you like Gigantoraptors, don't you? Especially for early incubation of eggs. And Rhinonaphers are now spawning on Ragnarok as well, so if you decided to build in that lovely swamp castle, get yourself well and prepared. They're going to be gunning for you, I'm pretty sure, because as you'd be expecting, they're spawning in the swamp region. Here's the 2 locations that we found spawning right here. Blue gems have been added to Ragnarok, and well, you need blue gems to make crab saddles, don't you? And there they are now. And they're spawning in a variety of high rising locations. Here they are, right by Green Hub, on top of this snowy mountain, right by a bunch of wyverns, so it's going to be nice and easy for you to go and farm those, right? Here's the coords if you're interested, 49.32. But don't worry too much, there are blue gems just a bit further away from the ice wyvern spawns, just a little bit below the mountain, as well as tucked away here behind these trees, just below the mountain there. And a brand new cave can be found just added to Ragnarok at coords 62.58. Doubling up as not only a PvP cave, but filled with that precious resource. We need more locations for it to farm, and it's quite a nice narrow windy corridor that I think a few PvPers out there might be quite pleased to see, with metal in here as well, obviously water, which is a big benefit. And if we go all the way right to the very back, we're going to start finding polyplants littered in the bucket load to farm, possibly making this the best poly location to date. Look at all that poly. This is probably the second best now, bar the Wyvern Cove, with just enough ample space at the back to make your base. I think quite a few players are going to be happy to see this one. It kind of winds down just a little bit more, rotating round into a nice little tight corridor down here into a little overhang ledge there. This is quite a nice cave, actually. I imagine PvPers are going to be racing for this one very quickly. And maybe even spotting a mesh hole. I don't think you can pass through there, though. It's just an invisible barrier at the moment. Yeah, nice cave. Fungal woods can now be found and farmed on Ragnarok, and you'll find these on these particular trees in the swamp, just south of the swamp. With plenty here, all offering fungal woods, with a few more locations over here in the water next to it, with the coords here being 50.19. And in fact, looking at it further, spread all over the swamp, they're in particular trees in between all of the swamp trees. Not too hard to find, but yeah, the swamp is where you need to go if you want fungal wood. And the same applies to agaravic and auric mushrooms farmed from these trees too, I guess for taming some of the aberrant variants. But a big one I know a lot of you have been waiting patiently for, because it's been a bit bugged since day one. Bison spawns are back in action. They are now fixed and now spawning correctly in their designated areas. You'll find bisons all over in the the same locations, the brand new islands, and of course the Highlands. And with the Summer Bash event, they're definitely sporting some interesting colours. Ragnarok is no longer a thing no more. It doesn't look nearly as red as it used to during dawn or sunset weather effects. You can now see just a bit more, and it's not as red as it used to be. With the very loud daytime transition audio stinger now operating as intended with the right audio sliders, so you won't hear that booming through your ears if you've got music turned down. Temperature now rises at daytime, so you won't be freezing your butt off anymore exploring Ragnarok with the heat temperature going up to a livable amount. Dark altars that you get from killing dreadmares are able to be placed now, though it's a bit weird. They do get obstructed in a lot of places. You've got to get some seriously flat ground for them to work, but you can now place these to summoning your dreadmares, which apparently was a bit of an issue up until now. And pyromanes can now walk around in the lava in the jungle biome. Makes perfect sense. Why not, right? Making them even more OP means you can now run around in the lava elemental arena on a fire lion, meaning this is by far the best strat to take on the rock elemental. Can't say I'm too pleased about this one, but you know, why not? Let's give the fire lion another buff. Makes sense. Rafts no longer get stuck in certain places on Ragnarok. Apparently there was a place around here where you'd hit an invisible wall on your raft and wouldn't be able to move anywhere, which is obviously a bit frustrating for everybody, but that's no longer the case anymore. Weather event frequency is no longer as, well, long as it used to be. People were complaining about that one, right? So they'll be over quicker than before, and you can now actually hear the rain during these electrical storms. I didn't even notice that before, to be honest. The no build radius outside of the labyrinth now has been extended, so people can't block the entrance. Apparently they were doing that on PvP, ya bums, and maybe even on PvE as well, ya bums. Missing crystal nodes have now been fixed, so you should be finding more crystal nodes across the entire map. Palm fronds are now pickable, and I think it's these ones that you can find in the carnivorous caverns, as well as other locations, rewarding you just fiber, which is a bit of a win if you just want fiber, right? The redwoods now looks like the redwoods prior to this. All of these sapling trees were super duper tiny apparently, so now you've got an actual forest where the redwoods is. Some texture improvements within the labyrinth, though to be honest I'm not quite sure where the texture issues were. I didn't remember seeing any, but they've been fixed. And guttingly, I thought this was such a cool feature. I'm gutted to see this removed. I keep it in. Even if there's a way for us to keep it in the game, I would love to see the map covered in snow if you fail the boss. I think that's only a thing in single player, but I would love that to be an actual feature then if it was a bug. Chat, campaign with me in the comments below. There was a visual glitch with the water where it was lighter or darker in certain areas, but that's been resolved. Some tree collision preventing you from harvesting those particular trees, as well as some rock collision as well. Finishing off with supply crates spawning in locations without going through the mesh anymore. That should be resolved for all supply crate locations, so you can get those supply crates that you're missing. And apparently there was an issue with players getting teleported out of Salt Vale's lighthouse. That's no longer the case anymore. You won't find yourself getting teleported all over the shop, so you can now build in there if you intend to. There was a few weird light issues at the landscape of Hibber's Summit, although I think this is Hibber's Summit. Anyway, those have been resolved. You won't see any weird glowy lights or red lights now littering the snow. As well as mesh holes, there's been a variety of mesh holes being fixed, so you can no longer try and fly around within under the mesh. Down where it's better, don't take it from me. And with a wide list of just general bug fixes like the cat dossier not working, structures rendering on clients slower since 5.5, the dragon horde key not requiring Bob's Tall Tales. To be fair, a big one now, the Valwind's now able to be deployed on Aberration, bison damaging thatch, tech bunker foundation check being too large, and a bunch of new exploits fixed, so imagine one or two of them we found. There's been a variety of visual tweaks, including one big one heading into the Showtake Cave. We got our name on the wall, baby. Look at that. Hey, we're here. We're imprinted, cemented for eternity on this map. And thank you so much, Jackson, and the rest of the team at Wildcard for making that happen. This really does mean a lot, honestly. It's the best. I wish I was reacting to this live, but really, honestly, it does mean the world with not only me, but a lot of people around me that have supported me for a long time on here as well. It really does mean a lot. Thank you so much. Can't wait for people to come and check this out because there's a lot of new names in here and I look forward to seeing the reactions to it. So, until the next one, there you go. My name's Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, peace out.